The Sacred Journey. This is Go. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. You're watching Go on Shaw TV's Channel 4. We are on location at the north end of Comox Valley, but we will be moving farther into the valley shortly. The footage you are now seeing on the screen was taken on Sunday, March 13th, as Bishop Logan McMenamie and his walking companion, Mr. Wayne Stewart, left Roberts Lake. They are walking from tip to tip of Vancouver Island in a sacred journey. And as they enter each First Nations land, they are asking permission to do so of the First Nations. We will talk with the bishop later in the show, but up first, this sweet spot from the Laughing Oyster. Here is Andrina Kasholti. Books. I love books. Thanks so much, Andrina. In the previous century, the Anglican Church entered the lands of the New World as colonists, and doing so has caused generations of harm. Over the past years, as the reality of this harm has come to light, many have begun the process of apology, healing, and renewing those relationships in respectful and honorable ways. Later in the show, we will hear from the bishop how this thought grew into action. And now we are heading up to Campbell River. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Joining me now is Bishop Logan McMenamie. Bishop, how did the thought of reconciliation lead through to an action of the sacred journey?
Well, the thought of reconciliation is part of our diocesan vision, reconciliation and beyond. And we have been working with First Nations folk for a number of years. And we have been at different events where we have given apologies for our involvement in residential schools. But there had to be an apology is only the first step, a very small step on the journey towards reconciliation. And so there was something else we had to do. And after conversation with elders, with advisors I have who are First Nations, I talked about the possibility of me as the representative of Anglicans on the island. As you know, we are the Diocese of British Columbia, but we're actually Vancouver Island, the Gulf Islands, and Kincombe. And of me on behalf of those people going on a sacred journey, on a vision quest for us, where I would begin and take the action of, on behalf of all of the diocese, being in a state of repentance.
What has been the reception that you've received from the First Nations?
Well, there had to be a journey before the journey.
Yes.
And that journey took me to First Nations communities up and to the islands. And they've all been wonderful. All the chiefs I have said, great, you're welcome on our lands. And which I said, no, but I'm actually going to walk on your land and come into your land and talk to you. And they've said, well, let's check protocol and see how that works. So we've begun on Cormorant Island with the community in Alert Bay with the Numgus people, and we had a celebration in a big house, and they gave us permission to come onto the land and stay on the land. Unfortunately, in Campbell River, we weren't able to there was an incident on the reserve, so we weren't able to meet with anybody. But again, very receptive, very open when I met with administrators. And here in the Comox Valley to meet with the Comox chief, he was just wonderful and very welcoming. And again, it was, yes, go ahead. To come on, so very positive.
Now, personally, what is it that you feel, you're only about halfway, what have you feel that you've learned thus far?
Well, it's been, of course, the road from Port McNeill down to Campbell River was quite an experience because much of it, in spite of the traffic, is in silence and you're on your own, so you have a lot of time to think and to meditate and to pray. So the journey down is a lot of personal experience for me, a lot of coming to terms with who I am in relationship to the Creator, because I really believe that when you draw close to the creation, you draw close to the Creator. And I will not be able to unpack all of that stuff for a while yet, but each of us have been reflecting each day about what the journey has meant for us. So silence with indifference, our indifference towards creation, our indifference towards First Nations, our indifference towards poverty, our indifference towards homelessness, was the first day, one of the first main walks when we talked afterwards. That was very powerful. because it was silence, and it was as if creation, the environment around about us was going, oh, so you're walking through us, lots of people walk through us, how are you going to be different after this?
Right.
And really work at protecting creation and at reconciliation. So those are the things we're bringing out each day.
Good. All right. Well, good luck on the rest of the walk. You're going all the way to Mill Bay and then
across on the ferry from Mill Bay to the
Brentwood
peninsula.
Bay. Yep.
And then we go to Holy Trinity for Monday, Thursday, and then there's a walk on Good Friday. And then on Saturday I'll walk into Victoria, and I'll be going to a number of places. I'm going to Esquimalt, to Saugneys. I'm going to go to Tent City, because I have some friends at Tent City in Victoria, and they're looking for my arrival there, so we'll go and visit them. And then on Easter Sunday I'll walk to the cathedral.
Okay, excellent.
Good.
Well, keep us posted as things evolve out of this. I'm sure that there will be many, and be well.
Thank you very much for being with us and for this. Thank you,
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate that.
Now we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Go is on location today following the sacred journey of Bishop Logan McMenamie. He is also walking with Wayne Stewart and Reverend Jim Holland, who we are going to talk to briefly in a short little while right after this. I'm Mary Ruth Harris. Joining me now, the Reverend James Holland. Why did you choose to walk with the bishop?
Well, I've been asking myself that all day. No, actually, it's been really great. I love this idea of pilgrimage. So I was actually all ready to go on a pilgrimage in Portugal. I had the book. I was just about ready, but something, I kept not booking the tickets, and then this came up, and I love the idea of a pilgrimage as a way to kind of reconcile one with oneself.
Right.
Like walking. I was saying last night, when you walk, stuff comes up, old stuff or wounds come up or whatever, and you're just there with it. You can't turn on the TV or flip the computer on. You just have to be with it and walk with it. So I always find these long walks very healing, and I love this idea that Logan, the bishop, has about reconciling with First Nations people through this walk. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's just the right way of coming at this issue, So I'm just really grateful that I've had the opportunity to do it. I'm really having a good time.
Okay.
Most of the time.
Most of the time. And your legs are holding up all right?
My legs are, yeah. I didn't train very well, so.
All right.
And I slept out in a tent last night, and it was cold. It went down to 0. So I'm really getting this Lenten, thing going on.
Now, how long are you going to walk with them?
I'll walk to Mill Bay and
Mill
then
Bay,
back up to Shawnigan Lake, where I live.
Terrific.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations, and
Well, thank you.
well done, and
Well,
I'm
thank
glad you're healing from it.
Well, it's just I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Okay.
And thank you, and it's wonderful to see you, Mary Ruth.
Yes, you too. And now we're going to check in on this feature on Helen Austin, world-renowned international superstar, and she lives here in the Comox Valley. Have a look. Thanks so much for that, Judy. Helen is such an inspiration. Now, joining me is Chief Rob Everson of the Comox First Nation. Logan McMenamie is the Bishop of the Anglican Church, and he is walking tip to tip on Vancouver Island as a sign of reconciliation to the First Nations. What are your thoughts?
Oh, geez. My thoughts. I met with the bishop last week, and we had a frank discussion on his journey and what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that there's so many small steps that people are taking with regards to truth and reconciliation and trying to get past the blatant colonialism, the impact that it's had on First Nations. And I think that, I think that the bishop has had a strong love for his church, and obviously has spent a lifetime learning and teaching and sharing with others. And I think that on a personal level, that knowing the history, the dark history of the church, colluding with the government with regards to First Nations people across Canada, I think that would cause anyone, including the bishop, I'm sure, to have personal reflection on exactly what your belief system is and how do you move forward reconciling yourself to the knowledge that the wrongs that have been done by an institution that you have come to love, So I think that for him to do this, I think really shows character, and it shows a willingness to move forward in a manner that, unfortunately, I think a lot of our other leaders, including some of our political leaders, just haven't taken upon themselves. You know, it's one thing to say you're sorry and ask for forgiveness, but it's an entirely another thing to take it upon yourself to demonstrate that in an open manner, such as he is doing.
When he first came to you and explained to you what he wanted to do and how he was going to be reaching out to each of the First Nations up and down the island, how did that make you feel that somebody actually came and is asking permission of you to come onto the lands?
Well, I think as a First Nations person, obviously it makes me feel good to know that there's that protocol has been instilled in some people, not everyone, but some people. The first thought that came into my mind was, you know, in my mind I was struggling actually with how do I approach this? Because, you know, as a First Nations person and seeing many of my family and close relatives, you know, struggle throughout their lives with different problems, with you know, at the apprehension of children, with suicide, with substance abuse, with a whole gamut of problems, and at the heart of it is always this extreme poverty and not being able to get out of it. So my first inclination was, you know, I was speechless, as you know, to be frank. I didn't really know how to respond or what to think. I thought that to myself, how do you welcome openly a man representing an organization that you know that has perpetrated such wrongdoing on so many people, but at the same time, the humbleness of the bishop, you know, and his true intent and his spirit comes through when he talks to you, and you know that, pardon me, you know that through his humility and going on this walk and demonstrating to the people that he represents that obviously there's you know, there's character there, and that's the first thing that I thought, that there was character
And a desire to move things forward to the next conversation.
Absolutely, and I think that you know, it with any wrongdoing such as what's happened with our First Nations people and with the Truth and Reconciliation, which everyone knows about, that, you know, there are a lot of steps that need to be taken, and this is one of those small steps that needs to be taken, and it needs to be taken on not by just the individuals, but by the church itself. It needs to be a lot broader than just the bishop coming forward. It needs to be on a more province-wide or even a Canada-wide scale, where we come together and talk about how do we get past this, and what do we do to ensure that there is healing with First Nations communities across Canada, because as we all know, there's so many First Nations communities that still struggle today.
And are in crisis. It's in the news this week.
There's too many First Nations that are in crisis. We hear about the First Nation in Manitoba with the suicide crisis. We hear about water crisis, housing, poverty. Everyone knows about these problems. Everyone knows about murdered or missing women. And it's nice to see that the federal government is finally taking steps to have an inquiry and get to the bottom of this. Because we all know that another ethnic group outside of our First Nations people that had such a high rate of murdered and missing women, this would have happened years ago.
Rob, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we're going to head over to Powell River. Thank you so much for watching Go today. My name is Mary Ruth Harris. We have been following the sacred journey path of Bishop Logan McMenamie, who is walking tip to tip of Vancouver Island as a sign of reconciliation towards First Nations. Thank you so much to Bishop Logan and to Reverend James Holland, and of course to Chief Rob Everson for sharing their thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you soon.